It was just another Tuesday morning in Mountain View, California. The sun had barely risen over the Silicon Valley skyline, casting a soft golden glow on the rooftops of quiet neighborhoods and tech campuses alike. Birds chirped, the air was crisp, and the world seemed peaceful, like it always does before the rush of emails, meetings, and deadlines kicks in. Inside a modest but elegant home not too far from the Googleplex, the main campus of Google, Sundar Pichai was already up. For those who don't know, Sundar is the CEO of both Google and its parent company Alphabet. But despite his high rank and global influence, he's known for being down-to-earth, humble, and surprisingly simple in his lifestyle. That morning, like most mornings, Sundar woke up early. Not because he had an important meeting or a big speech to give, but because that's just how he rolls. He likes starting the day early. It gives him time to think, plan, and prepare without distractions. He got out of bed, stretched a bit, and walked over to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was still sleepy. Kids hadn't gone to school yet. Joggers were just beginning to appear on the sidewalks. And somewhere nearby, a dog barked happily at nothing in particular. Sundar smiled. This was his favorite part of the day. He walked into the kitchen, where his wife, Anjali, was already brewing coffee. She handed him a mug and gave him a gentle smile. "Big day?" she asked. "Not really," Sundar replied. "Just a normal day." Anjali rolled her eyes playfully. "Even normal days are big when you run Google." They shared a laugh, then Sundar sat down with his laptop. He opened his email and started going through messages. Nothing urgent today. Just updates from teams, some product feedback, and a few reminders about upcoming meetings. After finishing his coffee, Sundar closed the laptop and said goodbye to Anjali. He grabbed his keys, put on his jacket, and headed out the door. The car he drove wasn't flashy or expensive. It was a regular sedan, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed CEO. In fact, if you saw him driving by, you wouldn't even guess who he was unless you recognized his face. As he pulled out of the driveway, he turned on the radio. Classical music filled the car. That was his go-to for calming his mind before work. He liked the way it made him feel focused and relaxed at the same time. The drive to Google HQ was short, only about 15 minutes. On a good traffic day, it was even faster. Sundar didn't mind the commute. He actually enjoyed it. It gave him time to mentally shift gears from family man to CEO mode. When he arrived near the Googleplex, he saw the familiar campus come into view. Big glass buildings, green lawns, colorful bikes parked everywhere, and people walking around in casual clothes. It looked more like a college campus than a corporate headquarters. Google has many buildings, each labeled with a number. Sundar was heading to Building 43, one of the main offices where a lot of the top-level executives worked. He parked in his usual spot, not marked, not reserved, and got out of the car. He adjusted his glasses, took a deep breath, and began walking toward the entrance. The front doors of the building were automatic. You'd walk up, swipe your badge, and the doors would open smoothly. Inside, there was a lobby with friendly security guards, a cafe, and a few couches where employees could sit and chat before their meetings. But today, something strange happened. Sundar reached into his pocket and pulled out his employee badge. He tapped it against the reader near the door. He heard a beep, paused for a moment, and then access denied. He blinked. Confused, he tried again. Beep. Access denied. A third time. Still no luck. Now, Sundar was a smart guy. He knew technology wasn't perfect. Sometimes things glitched. Sometimes systems crashed. So instead of getting upset, he simply stepped aside and waited for someone else to come along. Sure enough, a young engineer approached the door. He swiped his badge, and the door opened immediately. No problem. Sundar stepped forward again. Tried. Once more. Still denied. This time he pressed the intercom button next to the door and waited. A voice came through the speaker. "Hello?" "Hi," Sundar said politely. "I'm Sundar Pichai. I think my badge isn't working." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "Oh, oh, wow. 1 second, sir." Another pause. Then the sound of typing. Then more silence. Sundar stood there waiting patiently. He checked his watch. 8:47 a.m. He thought back to the past few months. He had been busy. There had been major changes happening across Google. New products launching, AI projects moving forward, layoffs affecting parts of the company, and pressure from investors to keep growing. But none of that felt relevant right now. Right now, all he wanted was to get into his office. He smiled to himself. Life had a funny way of humbling even the most powerful people. Finally, after nearly 10 minutes, the door clicked open. "Thank you," Sundar said as he stepped inside. "No problem, sir," the guard said nervously. "We're fixing the system now." "It's okay," Sundar replied. "Stuff happens." And with that, he walked into the building like nothing had happened. Behind him, the door shut quietly. Ahead of him, the buzz of 1,000 keyboards and conversations awaited. To anyone watching, it looked like just another normal day at Google. But little did Sundar know, this small, silly incident was about to become a big deal. One that would spread across the internet, spark laughter, and remind everyone, including Sundar himself, that even CEOs have bad tech days. Word count: 1980 words. Tone: simple, engaging, light-hearted, and easy to read. Style: third-person narrative, focusing on character, setting, and subtle humor. Inside the building, the air was cool and clean. The lights were bright, but not harsh. The sound of soft music mixed with the gentle hum of conversation and the occasional beep of a badge scanner. Sundar stepped into the lobby like he did every morning, but today felt different. Behind him, the automatic door closed with a quiet shh sound, as if it too knew something unusual had just happened. He looked down at his badge. It was the same one he'd used for years, white plastic, with his name printed clearly. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google. He turned it over in his hand, almost expecting it to say something like, "Just kidding," or "April Fools." But of course, it didn't. He smiled to himself again. This was funny. A little embarrassing? Maybe. But mostly funny. He walked past the cafe where baristas were already making lattes and cappuccinos for early workers. He waved at a few people he recognized. Some waved back. Others didn't notice him at all, which, honestly, he kind of liked. But even though he was inside now, the story wasn't over, because behind the scenes, things were starting to move fast. The panic behind the scenes. Back in the security room, deep inside Building 43, there was a small group of guards watching monitors and responding to calls. One of them, a young man named Jason, was still sitting at his desk, replaying what had just happened. "Wait," Jason said out loud, turning to his co-worker Lisa. "Did I just lock out Sundar Pichai?" Lisa looked up from her coffee. "What?" "I think I locked the CEO out of the building." She blinked. "You're joking." "No," Jason said nervously. "He called me on the intercom. Said he was Sundar Pichai. At first I thought it was a prank. Then I checked the system and saw who it really was." "Oh my God." Lisa dropped, her mug gently onto the table. Her eyes went wide. "You've got to be kidding me." "I wish I was," Jason muttered, rubbing his face. "I feel terrible." They both sat there for a moment, frozen. Then Lisa grabbed her phone and sent a quick message to their supervisor. "Hey, we might have a problem. Sundar tried to come in and got denied access. We let him in now, but his badge isn't working." Within minutes, the message spread like wildfire. It went from Lisa's supervisor to IT, from IT to management, and from management to someone much higher up. Before long, someone in the executive office was asking questions. Why did Sundar get locked out? Was this a glitch? Is the system broken? Or worse, was he blocked on purpose? Suddenly, what seemed like a small mistake had become a full-blown mystery. Inside the tech team. Over in the main tech support area, a team of engineers was having their usual morning meeting when their manager, Priya, walked in holding her phone. "Guys," she said, "we've got a situation." The team stopped talking. Priya held up her screen. It showed an internal alert that read, "Urgent. Executive access issue. CEO badge not working." One of the engineers, Raj, raised an eyebrow. "CEO, like Sundar Pichai?" "Yes," Priya said. "His badge failed 3 times. Security. Had to manually unlock the door." Raj looked confused. "That doesn't happen unless the system thinks he shouldn't be here." Another engineer, Maya, frowned. "Are you saying someone blocked him?" "No," Priya said quickly. "We don't know yet. That's why we need to check everything." And so within minutes, the team dove into the system logs. They searched through databases, checked access levels, and ran tests on the badge readers. Everything looked normal, at least on the surface. But the deeper they dug, the stranger it got. The mystery deepens. As they scrolled through the logs, Maya noticed something odd. "Wait," she said, "look at this." On her screen was a line that read, "Access denied, invalid clearance level." "What?" Raj leaned in. "Invalid clearance? Sundar has top-level access. How is this possible?" Maya shrugged. "Maybe it's a bug. Or maybe someone changed his settings by accident." "Let's double-check," Priya said. They pulled up Sundar's profile in the employee database. His title was clear: Chief Executive Officer. His department? Executive Leadership. His access level? Full campus access. So why had the system rejected him? Could someone have messed with his account? Raj asked. "That would require admin rights," Priya replied. "Only a few people have that." "Like who?" "Like Sundar himself." There was silence. "Wait," Maya said slowly. "Are you saying he locked himself out?" "It's possible," Priya admitted. "Sometimes executives change their own permissions without realizing the consequences." Raj laughed. "So the CEO locked himself out of his own company?" "Not intentionally," Priya said. "But yeah, it could happen." Still, no one could confirm anything until they talked to Sundar directly. And Sundar, meanwhile, had no idea any of this was going on. Meanwhile, back in the office. By now, Sundar had reached his office. He opened the door, stepped inside, and placed his bag on the chair. The room was neat. A large window gave a view of the campus. His desk was simple, just a laptop, a notebook, and a photo of his family. He sat down, powered up his computer, and began checking emails. Nothing out of the ordinary. He glanced at the time. 9:15 a.m. He had a short meeting in 15 minutes with the product team about a new AI feature they were testing. He wanted to make sure it was ready for the next demo. As he typed a reply to an email, his assistant knocked on the door. "Come in," Sundar said. She entered, holding a tablet. "Hi, sir. There's something you should know." "Oh?" Sundar looked up. "The security team reported an issue this morning. Your badge was denied access." Sundar chuckled. "Yeah, I noticed that. They're looking into it. It wants to talk to you." Sundar raised an eyebrow. "It was probably just a glitch." "We think so too," she said. "But they want to make sure." Sundar nodded. "Okay, fine. Let them know I'm happy to help." She left the room. Sundar leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a moment. He thought about how strange life could be. Here he was, running one of the biggest companies in the world, and he couldn't even get into his own building. He shook his head and smiled. The search for answers continues. Back in the tech team's office, the investigation was picking up speed. "All right," Priya said. "Let's go straight to the source. We need to talk to Sundar." Raj stood up. "Should I go?" "Yeah," Priya said. "Be polite. Don't make it sound like he did something wrong." "Got it." Raj grabbed his notebook and headed toward Sundar's office. When he arrived, Sundar greeted him warmly. "Hey, Raj," he said. "I heard you were coming." Raj smiled nervously. "Hi, Mr. Pichai. Thanks for seeing me." "No problem." "What's going on?" "Well," Raj began, "your badge got denied this morning. We're trying to figure out why." Sundar thought for a second. "Did I do something weird yesterday? Like update my profile or change my settings?" Raj nodded. "That's exactly what we're wondering." Sundar tapped his chin. "I remember clicking on a notification last night. Something about updating my access settings. I thought it was just a routine thing." Raj's eyes lit up. "That must be it," he started, typing notes furiously. "So?" Sundar asked. "Does that mean I locked myself out of my own company?" Raj grinned. "Looks like it," Sundar laughed. "Well, that's embarrassing." Raj joined in the laughter. "Don't worry. It happens more than you think." They talked for a few more minutes, and Raj explained how the system worked. He promised to fix it right away. Before leaving, Raj said, "Thanks for your help, sir." "No problem," Sundar said. "And next time, maybe I'll just call someone before I try to break in." They both laughed again. The word spreads. Word travels fast in a place like Google. Within an hour, employees across the campus had heard the story. Some were laughing, others were shaking their heads. A few were even making memes. CEO tries to enter building, fails. Even robots can't control everything. "Welcome to the club, boss." In the lunchroom, a group of interns were chatting. "I can't believe he actually got locked out," one said. "I bet he was mad," another added. "Nope," said a third. "I heard he was super chill about it." "That's Sundar," said the first intern. "He's the opposite of a diva." Someone else chimed in. "I wish my boss was like that." A small moment with big meaning. By the end of the day, the badge issue was fixed. Sundar's access was restored. Everything was back to normal. But the story stayed with the employees because it reminded them of something important. Even the most powerful person in the company can have a bad tech day. Even the CEO makes mistakes, and sometimes the best leaders are the ones who laugh at themselves instead of getting angry. That morning had started like any other, but by the end of the day, it had become a lesson in humility, humor, and the human side of leadership. And for Sundar Pichai, it was just another reminder that no matter how high you rise, you never stop learning. Word count: 2,000 words. Tone: light-hearted, relatable, engaging, and easy to follow. Style: third-person narrative focusing on character reactions, workplace culture, and subtle humor. The story of Sundar Pichai getting locked out of Google's office had started as a small glitch. But now it was turning into something much bigger. Not because it was dramatic or serious, but because of how Sundar handled it. In most companies, if the CEO got locked out, someone would probably panic. There might be emails flying around. People could lose sleep over it. The media might even find out and twist the story into something bigger than it was. But at Google, things were different. And so was Sundar. A leader like no other. By lunchtime, the whole building knew what had happened. Some people whispered about it in the hallways. Others talked about it in meetings. and a few even made jokes about it on the company message board. One post said, "CEO tries to enter building. Door says no. Sundar says, okay, I'll wait." Another one read, "Even robots don't control him." And then there was this one. "Sundar gets denied access. Not by hackers, not by bugs, but by himself. Legend." Most CEOs wouldn't like being the center of attention for something like this, especially not in a negative way. But Sundar wasn't, like most CEOs. When he heard about the jokes, he didn't get angry. He didn't ask anyone to delete them. In fact, when someone showed him the posts during lunch, he laughed. "Honestly," he said, "this is exactly what I'd expect from Google." That kind of reaction was rare. But that's who Sundar was. Sakra. No ego, just humility. Later that day, Sundar walked into a large meeting room where dozens of employees had gathered for an all-hands session. This was a regular event at Google. Executives shared updates, answered questions, and talked about new projects. As soon as Sundar walked in, everyone clapped. Not because he had done anything special that day, just because he was Sundar, and everyone liked him. He smiled, waved, and took his seat at the front. The meeting began normally. He talked about new AI tools, product launches, and updates on some big projects. Then, near the end, someone raised their hand. "Yes?" Sundar said. A young software engineer stood up. He looked nervous but tried to smile. "I just wanted to ask, did you really get locked out of the building this morning?" There was a pause. Then the room burst into laughter. Sundar chuckled too. "Yes," he said. "I did." The room quieted down again, waiting for more. He leaned forward and said, "I swiped my badge. It said access denied. I tried again, still denied. So I waited. Eventually, they let me in." Everyone laughed again. Then Sundar added, "I guess I need to stop clicking on random pop-ups." That got the biggest laugh of all. After the laughter died down, someone else asked, "What did you learn from it?" Sundar thought for a moment. Before answering, "Well," he said, "it reminded me that we're all human. Even CEOs make mistakes. And sometimes the systems we build can surprise us, even when we think we understand them." He paused. "But also," he added with a grin, "maybe I should update my photo." That line got another round of applause. Why everyone loves him. After the meeting ended, people left the room smiling. They weren't just laughing because of the joke. They were smiling because of how Sundar acted. He could have ignored the whole thing. Or worse, he could have gotten upset and told people to stop talking about it. But instead, he owned it. He turned what could have been an embarrassing situation into a moment of connection. And that's what made him such a good leader. At Google, employees often say that Sundar doesn't act like a boss. He acts like a teammate. He doesn't walk around with a group of assistants following him everywhere. He doesn't demand special treatment. He doesn't get angry when things go wrong. Instead, he listens, he asks questions, he tries to understand, and he never forgets that behind every piece of technology, there are real people using it. Inside the culture of Google. To understand why Sundar's reaction mattered so much, you have to understand the culture at Google. Google isn't like a traditional company. It's not stiff or formal. It's creative, open, and built around ideas. People wear hoodies to work. Dogs come into the office. You can eat free food anytime. And leadership? It's not about power or titles. It's about trust, collaboration, and humility. That's why Sundar fits in so well. He didn't rise to the top by being loud or aggressive. He rose by being smart, thoughtful, and kind. He believes in teamwork. He believes in listening. And he believes in staying grounded, no matter how high you go. So when he got locked out of his own office, It didn't hurt his image. If anything, it helped because it reminded everyone that he was still one of them. Colleagues share their thoughts. Later that week, a few employees were asked how they felt about what happened. "I thought it was hilarious," said Lisa, a product manager, "but also kind of cool," she added. "Like, here's the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world, and he's standing outside waiting like the rest of us." Another employee, Tom, a data scientist, said, "I've worked at other tech companies. Most bosses would have thrown a fit, but Sundar just laughed it off." "He's not fake," said Priya, a designer. "He's real. He makes you feel like your voice matters." Even interns, who usually don't interact with the CEO, were excited. "I saw him walking past my desk today," said Raj, a summer intern. "He said hi. Then he joked about needing a better badge." Raj grinned. "I still can't believe that actually happened." Satun, Ban. The power of humility. In many ways, the incident became a symbol of Sundar's leadership style. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He admitted when he made a mistake. He used humor to turn a small failure into a big lesson. And most importantly, he connected with people. That's what great leaders do. They don't hide their flaws. They embrace them. They use them to show others that it's okay to be imperfect, and that's exactly what Sundar did. Shachiwise. The ripple effect. The story spread beyond the Mountain View campus. Employees at Google offices in New York, London, and Singapore started talking about it too. "It's not every day your CEO gets locked out of the building," said Aisha, a software developer in Dublin. "And it's even rarer when he handles it like a pro," she added. In India, where Sundar was born, the story made headlines. News channels played clips of him joking about the incident. Students in engineering colleges watched those clips and talked about him. "He's proof that success doesn't change who you are," said Arjun, a student in Chennai. "He came from a middle-class family. Now he runs Google. And he still acts like a normal person. That's powerful. That's inspiring." A lesson in leadership. Back at Google HQ, Sundar sat in his office reviewing feedback from the all-hands meeting. His assistant knocked and entered. "Sir," she said, "there's something else. You should know." "What is it?" Sundar asked. "The team wants to give you a new badge, with a backup system, just in case." Sundar smiled. "I appreciate the offer, but maybe we should fix the system instead." She nodded. "Already. Working on it." He leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said, "sometimes these little moments teach us more than big speeches." She smiled. "I think everyone agrees with you." He looked out the window. Outside, the sun was setting. The campus was still buzzing with life. People were walking between buildings. Bikes rolled past. Laughter echoed through the halls. And somewhere, someone was making another meme about the CEO who couldn't get into his own office. Sundar shook his head and smiled. "Life has a funny way of keeping you humble," he said. Final thoughts. The story of Sundar getting locked out of Google didn't end with embarrassment. It ended with connection. It showed that leadership isn't about authority. It's about empathy. It's about knowing when to laugh. It's about understanding that no one is above mistakes. And it's about showing people that you care, not just about results, but about them. That's who Sundar Pichai is: a leader, a learner, and above all, a human. What started as a small mistake at the front door of Building 43 had now become something much bigger. It wasn't just an internal story shared over coffee in the Google cafeteria anymore. It was everywhere. From tech blogs to late-night TV shows, from Twitter threads to TikTok videos, Sundar Pichai's moment of being locked out of his own office had gone viral. And Sundar? He didn't hide from it. He leaned into it. With humor, grace, and a calm smile, he turned what could have been a PR nightmare into one of the most human moments ever seen from a tech CEO. How it spread like wildfire. The leak happened fast. Someone inside Google, probably not on purpose, shared a screenshot of the badge reader that said, "Access denied." Underneath it, someone added text in Comic Sans. Even the CEO gets blocked by tech sometimes. That image made its way onto Reddit first. Then, it hit Twitter. Within hours, it was trending. Tech news sites like TechCrunch, The Verge, and Wired picked up the story. Headlines read, "Google CEO locked out of his own office, thanks to bad tech. Sundar Pichai can't even enter. Google HQ. CEO tries to get into office, fails miserably." Soon after, mainstream media joined in. CNN ran a short segment on it during their morning show. BBC covered it under Business Light. And in India, where Sundar is considered a national icon, news channels played clips of him joking about the incident during the all-hands meeting. One anchor said, "This is why we love Sundar. He never forgets where he came from." Late-night laughs. By the end of the week, the story had reached Hollywood. Late-night talk show hosts couldn't resist making fun of it. On The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon opened with, "Hey, everyone, big news this week. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, got locked out of his own office, which is ironic, because I've been locked out of my house before too, but I don't run the internet." The audience roared with laughter. On The Late Show, Stephen Colbert joked, "You know you've made it when even your security system doesn't trust you." And Seth Rogen did a fake ad for CEO Mode, where Sundar tries to unlock his phone with his face, but the phone says, "Sorry, Sundar, you're not important enough." Everyone laughed. But instead of getting upset, Sundar responded with humor. He even retweeted a few jokes himself. Memes that broke the internet. As expected, the meme world exploded. Some were simple, others were genius. Here are a few of the best ones. Image of a robot blocking a man at a door. Caption: AI finally takes control. First victim, Sundar Pichai, 2. Split-screen photo. Left side, Sundar trying to get in. Right side, Elon Musk breaking into Twitter headquarters with a hammer. Caption: different styles, same chaos. 3. A drawing of Sundar standing outside a building labeled Google with a sign that reads, "Welcome to Google. Please swipe your badge to enter. Sundar, I am the badge." 4. 2 photos, one of Sundar at the door, one of Neo from The Matrix dodging bullets. Caption: both legends. One avoids bullets, one avoids embarrassment. 5. A comic strip showing Sundar trying to log into Gmail. Error message: account locked. Caption: when your life becomes meta. Reddit users even created a whole thread called RR Sundar Locked Out, full of fan art, stories, and edits. One post went viral. "Me trying to log into Netflix. Too many devices." Sundar Pichai trying to log into Google. Access denied. It got over 100,000 upvotes. Fans around the world reacted. For fans of Sundar, especially in India, the story was more than just funny. It was inspiring. Many saw it as proof that Sundar hadn't changed, despite being one of the most powerful people in tech. "He still acts like one of us," said Aman, a student from Delhi. "He doesn't act like a big shot." "I showed this to my parents," said Neha, a software developer. They couldn't believe the CEO of Google was locked out like a normal person. In Chennai, Sundar's hometown, a local newspaper wrote, "From Tambaram to Mountain View, Sundar remains humble, even when technology fails him. Back in the US, students in business schools used the story in class discussions. It shows how a leader can handle public embarrassment without losing respect, said a professor at Stanford. Another student added, most CEOs would try to erase this from the internet, but Sundar embraced it. That's leadership. Itram Chakra. Inside Google, the culture shifted slightly. Back at Google HQ, the mood was light. Employees wore badges with custom stickers that said, "Still trusted by the system," or "Not the CEO, not yet." Some teams even held mock access, denial competitions, where they'd pretend to get locked out and film themselves reacting like Sundar. Of course, no one matched his calmness. One intern filmed himself dramatically falling to his knees and shouting, "No!" Another tried to call IT like Sundar did, but with a fake British accent. The videos spread through internal channels, bringing smiles to everyone's faces. It became a bonding moment across teams, and for new employees, it was a reminder that Google wasn't just a place for geniuses or perfectionists. It was a place where mistakes were okay, where failure was part of learning, and where even the CEO could laugh at himself. Sundar's public response was classy. Instead of staying silent or issuing a formal statement, Sundar chose to respond directly, and with style. During a live Q&A session at a tech conference, a reporter asked him, "Sir, there's been a lot of talk online about you being locked out of Google HQ. How do you feel about it?" Sundar smiled. "Well," he said, "it's been a bit of a roller coaster." The crowd chuckled. "But honestly," he continued, "it's been amazing to see how people reacted. Some laughed, some made memes, and some even gave me tips on how to keep my badge safe next time." He paused. "I think the biggest takeaway, for me, is that even in tech, things can go wrong. And when they do, the best thing you can do is take it in stride." Applause broke out. Later that day, Sundar posted a short video on LinkedIn. It showed him standing in front of a whiteboard. He wrote, "Lesson number 1. Always double-check your access settings." Then he turned to the camera and said, "And lesson number 2. Never underestimate the power of a good sense of humor." He signed off with a wink. The video got over 1 million views in 24 hours. Why this story resonated so deeply. At its core, the story of Sundar being locked out was more than just a funny tech mishap. It was a reminder that no one is above mistakes. Technology can be unpredictable, even for those who build it. Leadership isn't about power. It's about how you react when things go wrong. Humility is rare and beautiful, and most importantly, even the most powerful people are still human. That's why the story stuck around, because people saw themselves in Sundar. They saw their own frustrations with bad Wi-Fi, broken apps, and confusing login systems. They saw the same tired look on his face when a machine says no, for no reason, and they saw the same quiet patience he had when he decided to wait instead of yell. Final thoughts. By the end of the month, the buzz had started to die down. The memes stopped coming. The late-night jokes moved on to other targets. Life at Google returned to normal. But the impact of that one small moment, the CEO being denied entry, never truly faded. It stayed with the employees, it stayed with the fans, and it stayed with the world because it reminded everyone that success doesn't mean perfection. It means growth, it means kindness, and it means knowing when to laugh, even when the system says no. Sundar Pichai didn't just survive the viral storm. He turned it into a lesson, a legacy. And maybe, just maybe, his most memorable moment at Google yet. Time passed. The buzz around Sundar Pichai being locked out of Google slowly faded from the headlines. Memes disappeared from social media feeds. Late-night jokes moved on to new targets. And life at Google returned to its usual rhythm. Meetings, code updates, product launches, and yes, even more tech glitches. But for Sundar, that moment stayed with him. It wasn't just a funny story anymore. It had become something deeper, a lesson, a reminder, and maybe even a turning point. The real meaning behind the moment. Months after the incident, Sundar found himself standing in front of a large audience at a leadership conference. He was invited to speak about innovation, AI, and the future of technology. But instead of diving straight into those big topics, he paused. Then he smiled. "I want to tell you a quick story," he said. The crowd leaned in. He told them what happened that morning when he tried to enter Building 43, how his badge didn't work, how he waited patiently outside like any other employee, how the internet turned it into a joke, and how he chose not to be upset, but to laugh, learn, and grow from it. When he finished, there was silence for a second. Then loud applause. After the event, a young student came up to him and asked, "Why did you share that? It's such a small thing." Sundar looked at her and said, "Because sometimes the smallest moments teach us the biggest lessons." She thought for a moment and nodded. That exchange stuck with Sundar, because it reminded him why that moment mattered, not just to him, but to everyone who saw it. A leader who stays grounded. In the months that followed, Sundar began mentioning the experience in more of his speeches. Not as a joke, but as a real-life example of leadership. He talked about how power doesn't mean much if you can't stay humble. He shared how important it is to understand the everyday struggles of your team, even if you're sitting in the top office. Spoke about how systems fail, mistakes happen, and no one is immune, not even the CEO. And most importantly, he talked about how leaders should respond with grace, with humor, and with a willingness to admit when things go wrong. His message resonated. At Stanford University, during a talk for business students, a professor asked, "What do you think made people connect so deeply with that moment?" Sundar thought for a few seconds before answering, "I think it's because people are tired of leaders pretending they're perfect. They want to see humanity. They want to see someone who makes mistakes, owns them, and moves forward without ego." There was silence again. Then another round of applause. Inside Google, culture shifts. Gently. Back at Google HQ, the impact of that day continued to ripple. Leaders across teams started talking more openly about their own mistakes. Some managers shared stories of getting locked out of meetings, forgetting passwords, or accidentally sending emails to the wrong person. They laughed about it, learned from it, and encouraged others to do the same. One team even created an internal campaign called Human Error, where employees could anonymously share their tech mishaps and get support without shame. The goal? To remind everyone that behind every line of code, every product, and every idea, there was a human being, flawed, learning, growing, and trying their best. It became part of the culture, and it all started with one small moment: a CEO trying to get into his office and failing. A new system for everyone. As promised, Google updated its access system. The badge readers were upgraded. Biometric options were added, like facial recognition and fingerprint scanning. And a backup protocol was put in place for executives and remote workers alike. But here's the twist. The update wasn't just for the bosses, it was for everyone, from interns to senior engineers, from cafeteria staff to security guards. Google made sure that no one, no matter their role, would ever face the same problem again. Sundar approved the EU changes personally, and he made one condition: make it simple, make it fair, and make sure it works for all of us. That became a motto for many projects moving forward. A global symbol of humility. Outside of Google, Sundar's response became a case study in leadership schools. Business professors used it in class discussions. Coaches cited it as an example of emotional intelligence. And even in countries far from Silicon Valley, the story inspired people. In India, where Sundar is seen as a role model for millions, schools began teaching the story. In leadership workshops, one teacher explained, Sundar showed that greatness isn't about pride. It's about humility. That's the kind of leader we should all aim to be. Students watched clips of him laughing off the situation. They read articles about how he handled pressure with calmness, and they learned that success doesn't have to come with arrogance. It can come with kindness. Chows. The legacy of one small mistake. By the end of the year, Sundar had been named one of the world's most admired CEOs by Fortune magazine. Again, this time, the article included a special section titled, The Access Denied Incident. Why? It made him more respected. It read, Sundar Pichai could have ignored the viral moment. He could have let PR handle it and moved on. But instead he embraced it. He laughed at himself. He owned the mistake. And in doing so, he earned the respect of millions who saw themselves in him. The piece ended with a quote from Sundar. We build technology to help people. So when the tech fails, we don't blame the user, we fix the system. And when we fail, we don't hide. We learn. That's what leadership is. Looking back, moving forward. One quiet afternoon, Sundar sat alone in his office. He looked out the window. The sun was setting over the Google campus. People were walking between buildings, bicycles rolled past, and somewhere, a group of interns were probably making another meme. He smiled. He thought back to that morning. The badge reader, the denial, the wait, the laughter, all of it. He realized something. That single moment had changed how people saw him. Not as a distant executive, not as a powerful CEO, but as a person. Real, relatable, human. And that meant more than any title ever could. Final thoughts. Sometimes, the most powerful moments aren't the ones filled with speeches, awards, or big announcements. Sometimes, they're the quiet ones. The moments when a leader chooses to pause, to reflect, to laugh, and to show that they're not above failure, but they're always rising from it. Sundar Pichai's story of being denied entry to Google's office will likely never be remembered as a major event in tech history. No new product was launched that day. No billion-dollar deal was signed. No groundbreaking discovery was made. But what was made that day? A connection, a memory, lesson, and a legacy that would last far beyond the walls of Building 43.